this morning. Tell me the story of Jesus, particularly the last phrase of that last verse. Stay, and that word stay there doesn't mean stay put, it means to hold on a minute. Stay, let me weep while you whisper. Love paid the ransom for me. That should find a depth of lodging in our hearts that nothing in this world should ever move. Love. For truly, this is the story of Jesus. No, that's not my text, or at least I don't think it's going to be this one. But take a minute. Take a minute every day and listen for the Spirit to bear witness in your heart again that love has paid the ransom for you. And that this love is our Redeemer. And that as defined by God's Word, you know, in this world today, anybody that buys back something is the Redeemer. Don't matter if you ever had it before or none of that's significant. But when we think about Redeemer as it's used in God's Word, it is very significant, because to be the Redeemer, you had to be and prove and be willing to be recognized as the near kinsman of that which are those that were redeemed. So whenever it's whispered in your heart that love has paid the ransom for you, and you consider that ransom was paid by your Redeemer, but there's more to that than just that Jesus paid the price, but that Jesus said, you are my near kindred. It is my right. It is my privilege. It is my purpose to redeem you. Love paid the ransom for me. I'll invite you to turn this morning for a few moments to the 9th chapter of the book of the prophet Isaiah. You all know, but now I'm not often a big hand of even thinking about that it's a holiday time whenever I look at different things to speak about, and the Lord puts these things on my mind. Advent is not a biblical term by any means, but it's still something that from time to time I give some thought to, and not just because this Sunday marks what they refer to as the beginning of the Advent season, but because we need in this world today to be reminded of our hope. And according to scholars and authors, that was the first theme of Advent. was hope. I like the idea of reading a chapter of Luke every day and living through that, the life of Jesus. Because we so often, as we lead up to what we refer to as the Christmas season and Christmas Day, and our focus seems to be narrowed down to the baby in the manger. I'm not saying by any stretch of the imagination that that's not important. But what I am telling you is that's not the whole story of Jesus. That's not all there is to the power and the might and the majesty of that story and of His glory. And I'm thankful that as we read God's Word, and it's one of our Bible study lessons that really impressed this upon me. You can read things for years and have a general awareness of them, but sometimes we need a specific awareness of things. And we find oftentimes the prophets, and particularly Isaiah, he speaks whenever he begins to write about things that are connected to the prophecy of Jesus Christ and His coming and His accomplishments. He wrote about them both in the present tense for His day and even in past tense for His day. And there was a reason why that God inspired the prophets to write in this manner. Because even though they did not live to see the physical birth of Jesus, they did not live to see physically the babe in the manger. They did not live to see the miracle worker that walked upon the sea. They did not live to see this man nailed to a cross, beaten beyond recognition, laying down his life, and 3 days later taking it up again with might and power and glory. They did not live to see any of those things. But so that they might know, and so that we might know, that they were just as real to them then as they are to us now, God moved His prophets to write about it in present tense, as though it were happening in their time, and in past tense, so that we understand that it applied to those that came before Isaiah and the other prophets. And in the second verse of the 9th chapter, we find these words: the people that walk in darkness have seen a great light. They that dwell in the land of the shadow of death, upon them hath the light shined. You see, it's wonderful to me to know that the hope of Jesus Christ has been in the world as long as there has been a world. That the promise of Him has been signified in the lives of His people over and over and over again, all down through the ages. And that the truth of Him, the truth of the story of Jesus was real for them. And it was real in the days that Jesus lived upon this earth in a body of flesh. And it's real today for those to whom God has given grace to see and to understand. The people that walk in darkness. Now I want you to consider those folks for just a few minutes, because they've been us. And we've been them. The people that walked in darkness. It didn't just say the people that lived in darkness, or the people that dwelled in darkness. You know, there are some people that dwell in darkness, and therefore, because they have always dwelled in darkness, they don't miss the light. They don't understand the power of the light. Even in the beginning of our natural lives, our first 9 months were spent in darkness. Light meant nothing to us. We didn't miss the light. We didn't long for the light. We didn't want the light. The light was not a part of our environment. Of course, we weren't trying to move around a whole lot either. We were very confined. This is talking about a people that walked in darkness. These folks, they had something in them now that was motivating them, that was urging them to move and to be about, and they realized that there was something that they needed to be about, that there was a reason that they needed to be moving, that they needed to be walking, that they needed to be exercised, but they were still in darkness. Any of you ever walked in darkness? Ever tried to slip in the house past curfew and not turn on the light and wind up tripping going up the stairs and waking the whole house up? Or decided you wanted that midnight snack and weren't going to disturb everybody else by turning the light on, and your little toe found the table leg in the living room as you went through? You ever rearrange the furniture and get up one night and fall over a couch that wasn't there the last time you went through that way? You see, even though it's necessary, and sometimes we feel that it's needful for us to get up and walk in the darkness, there's a danger to walking in the darkness. We're always fearful to some extent when we walk in the darkness, aren't we? I don't want to hang my toe on the coffee table leg. I feel along, and I'm real careful about each step that I take, and I try not to take big steps so that if I do hit it, I just bump into it and don't catch it, full steam ahead. Sometimes we find ourselves living our lives that way, don't we? That we feel like we can't really see that step that we need to take. We can't really see we feel like we need to be doing something, but walking in darkness is a fearful thing. There might be steps there that I don't see. And by steps there, I mean stair steps. There might be all kinds of hindrances that I don't see. But I'm alive. I'm alive. I've got life flowing through me. And I have the ability to walk. I have the need to walk. I have the desire to walk. But walking in darkness is a hard thing. Walking in darkness is a fearful thing. Walking in darkness is something that we are all going to do, and I say that for this reason, that nothing makes me appreciate finding the light switch any more than having walked through the darkness for a little while to get to it. Because once I make it to that light switch, once the light comes on, then I don't have to be nearly as afraid of that next step. I can see what's there. I can see the dangers. I can see the pitfalls. I can do things to avoid them. I can spare my little toe that pain. You see, this doctrine of hope was not to everyone that lived in darkness, but to the people that walked in darkness. As I said, there are those, there's a time and a season in our lives when we are content with the darkness. And Jesus even told some on one occasion, he said, you don't come to the light because you don't want your evil deeds to be exposed. Whenever we know, and the idea of doing evil deeds, that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm out here doing things that the world considers immoral, or that I'm out here doing things that the world that would get me locked up. But when I'm still living in a way that my heart tells me I shouldn't be living in, I don't want a lot of light shining on that. Do you? I don't want that to be exposed. I don't want to have to see it. I don't want to have to face it. Because if I have to face it, I might have to change my ways. The people that walk in darkness. You know, it's a blessing to know that the Lord has a purpose in our lives. It's a blessing to understand that there's a reason for the steps that we take. It's a blessing to realize that in spite of our failures and our shortcomings, that our kinsman Redeemer didn't buy us to just leave us sitting in darkness, but that in that purchase he put within us a desire and a zeal to walk, to be a living sacrifice. These people were alive. And they were not only alive, but they were lively. There's a difference between being alive and being lively. People in a coma are alive. But they're not lively. Can't be. So you see again, it is by God's grace and mercy that you have been called to be not only alive, but to be lively stones. To have a purpose and a function and a reason and a desire that you might live in a way that would give him praise and honor and glory, and that you might take those steps. And we find ourselves, don't we, that sometimes even we'll attempt to walk in the darkness. But what a great hope. What a wondrous thing takes place in our lives whenever the people that walked in darkness have seen a great light. Have seen a great light. Because a great light, does away with shadow. A great light illuminates our surroundings for us. A great light lets us see our steps and lets us understand that our path is before us and that our steps, by God's grace and mercy, are ordered in a way that will ultimately bring him the most praise and the most honor and the most glory. Now, as long as we walk in darkness, we're not always concerned about whether or not the path is going to bring him the most glory. We're more concerned about how much harm is going to come to us while we're trying to walk it. But when that great light comes, our desire and our concern shifts away from us and shifts, and our attention is directed to him and what glorifies him and what honors him. And then instead of walking in darkness, we find ourselves ready to run a race. Because in his great light, we find courage, and we find peace, and we find direction, and we find hope. blessed promise to you today. The people that walk in darkness have seen a great light. The two go together. God grants light to those whose desire to serve Him is such that even when the way is not clear to them, that even when the path might be fraught with dangers that they cannot see, that rather than sit in the darkness and bemoan their condition and bemoan their situation and do nothing, that they attempt to walk in that darkness, and God's grace and mercy shines into that darkness a great light. They that dwell in the land of the shadow of death. David wrote on one occasion about the shadow of death. There's something frightening to us sometimes about the shadows, aren't there? Any of you folks that ever have or maybe still do go deer hunting, you know, you get out in the woods early in the morning, and if you give your imagination just a little bit of leeway, there's all kinds of things out there in the shadows. We'll scare ourselves to death with shadows. I remember in my younger days, a fellow that I used to go hunting with, he was a bodybuilder. He had 20-inch biceps and you know, his strength was amazing. And sometimes we'd get together at his house 3 o'clock in the morning and drink a cup of coffee and sit around and talk, and invariably somebody tell some old booger tale. You're talking about Sasquatch or whatever. And this great, big, robust, bodybuilding fella, we'd get down to the woods and drive up to the gate. And of course, it was his hunting land, so it was his rules. And if the sun wasn't up yet, he'd say, y'all ain't getting out of the truck. Yeah, we didn't get there stand. Nope, you ain't getting out of the truck. You ain't sitting at my house at 3 o'clock in the morning telling booger tales and then think that we're going to go in the woods before the daylight, before the sun shines. We don't like shadows. The truth of the matter is, shadows have never hurt you. You can stand on a street corner all day long and let the shadow of a bus run over you. And what's it done to you? Nothing. If it takes you by surprise, you might jump a little bit. You might be startled. You might back up from the curb. But the fact of the matter is, that shadow is powerless to hold any power over you or to do any harm to you other than that with which you empower it. And I'm going to tell you that these people did not dwell in the land of death, and David did not write to those that walked in death. He wrote to those that walked in the shadow of death. Then Isaiah prophesied to the people that dwell in the land of the shadow of death. Whenever we walk in the darkness and that great light comes, I'm going to assure you this, that death has no power over us. Death has no power over the people that are willing to walk in the darkness. And we understand that whenever that great light shines and scatters even the shadow. They that dwell in the land of the shadow of death. I want you all to know something this morning, children of God. This world that we live in today, it's only the shadow of death. And just like standing on the curb and the shadow of that bus running over you, you have no more to fear from death that shadow that we face than you do from the shadow of that bus. It holds no power over you. There can be no harm in it for you. Yes, there are times that it startles us. Yes, there are times that it maybe takes us a little by surprise and gives us pause for a few minutes. Just like it did last Saturday morning when I got the call that my 43-year-old nephew was found dead in his bed. Whenever there was no indication the night before that there was anything in the least wrong with him. Good-hearted. Good-hearted to anything and everything around you. He found a couple of orphan possums, of all things, when they were teeny-tiny, and brought them to the house and nursed them and took care of them and petted them, and they grew and they were just pets, and he had posted a picture. They named one of them Wilbur, of all things. He posted a picture one day on Facebook with the caption, "Wilbur's living his best life." And that was Stephen's goal for everybody and everything that he came around, whether they were 4-footed, no-footed, or 2-footed. He was one of those people that wanted to see all of God's creatures living their best life. I don't know why it pleased God to call him home last Saturday morning from his loving companion and his 2 daughters and all the life that we all assumed that he had in front of us. But I do know this, that even in that, and even for them, they understand that death is just a shadow. They have talked and written so much over the last few days about what his life meant and about, how much they miss him, but they never talk about him like they're never going to see him again. We all dwell in the land of the shadow of death. They that dwell in the land of the shadow of death, upon them hath the light shine. Now, there are some that are truly dead. I'll leave that back. They are dead to the joys of the gospel. They are dead to the knowledge of the love of Jesus Christ. They haven't seen the light. They that dwell in the land of the shadow of death, upon them hath the light shine. You see, if the light has shined on you, that is your assurance that you only dwell in the land of the shadow of death. That there is nothing in this world that ultimately will have the final say of your life, that has final control over you, or that has final sway over what you do and how you live and how and whether or not you give God praise, honor, and glory in your life, because this great light has shined. Now, in that this light has shined, I am sure that the day is going to come that this old house is going to fail. This old tabernacle is going to fall. Be it sooner or later. The light has shined, and I know that it's going to fail. Because the light has shined, I know that when that day comes, I'll no longer need it. It's a land of shadow that is done away by the light of Jesus Christ. The life that the world, perhaps to some extent, celebrates this time of year more than they do any other time. That maybe some people, and I know there's a lot of back and forth among the Lord's people about whether we even ought to observe Christmas or not, or, don't bow down and worship your Christmas tree, okay? I think we all got sense enough to know that. But if you enjoy decorating for the season and you put up a tree, don't let folks make you feel bad about it. As long as you're giving God the praise and the honor and the glory in your life. The light will shine. We don't have to walk in darkness about those things. We know what our heart is before God. And more importantly, we know that God knows our heart. So if the light has shined, then I bid you in that hope to walk in the light and rejoice in the light and rest in the light and be at peace in the light. Thou hast multiplied the nation and not increased the joy. They joy before thee according to the joy in harvest, and as men rejoice when they divide the spoil. For thou hast broken the yoke of his burden, and the staff of his shoulder, the rod of his oppressor, as in the day of Midian. We have been liberated, set free, brought into a great, great life. So if you were willing, this is the other thing that I would caution you against. If you were willing to risk walking in the darkness, don't quit walking because you can see where you're going, or because you can see what's around you. You know, we walk in the dark sometimes and we can imagine dangers, and we run into others that we can't imagine. Sometimes when the light shines, we see dangers, don't we? Don't let the dangers that are illuminated all of a sudden cause you to become fearful of walking now. But if you were, by God's grace and mercy, and able to find the courage and the grace and the strength to walk in the darkness, then by all means stand up and walk in the light. And know that whatever harms you may see, even unto death, it's only a shadow. And it has no power over the life that you have in Jesus Christ. Tell me the story of Jesus. May God bless and keep